Hello, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to Wrestling with the Future. I'm your host, Mad Dog DeCipio. This is part two of psychology and storytelling. What happened in ring psychology, and where are all the storytellers? And joining me and back for the back for more punishment, back for part two, Seth Witz, a boxing and wrestling historian. The guy looks famous. He's not that guy, though. I'm going to tell you right now. You're going to look at Seth and go, hey, I saw him on TV. He's not that guy.
Well,
that
actually,
guy is Michael Anderson.
But in Seattle, you would have seen me on TV. So if you're from Seattle, you definitely got a different thing.
Exactly. Yeah, but that's local television in Seattle.
That's right.
Joining me, Michael Murphy, Armageddon. The man called Armageddon. How you doing, Murph?
I'm doing great, Angelo. It's a pleasure to be back.
Why so formal? Usually you call me schmuck or asshole.
No. Come on now. I only do that.
I've known you for 20. You realize I've known you since your career started?
Yeah, that's true. I think I was into my career about a year, maybe two, when you and I met.
Yep, you were about a year and a half in. You sure were. And to round out this amazing panel, he is a Pro Wrestling Hall of Famer. He is a journeyman wrestler, a guy. He was the super glue of Vince McMahon Sr.'s Worldwide Wrestling Federation. And he's my neighbor here in Jersey, Irish Davey Hannon. The most Italian Irish guy I know.
That's right.
How you doing, brother?
I'm doing fine. Fine. It's fun to be back with you guys.
I want to take this opportunity right at the beginning of the show. I usually wait at the end of the show to do this, but I'm so stoked about my guest for next week's show that I want to tell everybody at the outset of this show who it is. He is a Pro Wrestling Hall of Famer in not one, not two, not three, but 4 Pro Wrestling Halls of Fame. He is the man who patented the forearm called the Polish Hammer. You got it. The Polish Power himself, Ivan Putski, is my guest next week.
Right.
I know Murph is volunteering for that show.
Well, I'm going to call in and say hi to him.
I got news for you, David. You can come on and join the show with us next week. Why not?
Yeah, I won't take the time up, but I'm going to call. I'm going to call in and say hello to him. It's been a long time since I saw him or spoke to him. I worked with him.
He's building a new house, brother. He's building a new house.
Is he still in Texas?
Yes, I think he is, as a matter of fact, because the area code looked like it was a Texas area code.
Okay.
Yeah, he's still. When we get off the air, I'll share it with you.
All right.
Okay, you got it.
Sounds good.
When we last we were talking about the lost art of ring psychology and storytelling, and that, of course, branches off into other things like characters and character developments, and what happened to all our amazing characters, the cowboys, the Indians. Where are the little people? Well, Seth is with us, but you're not working right now.
I was never billed like as a midget wrestler or anything like that. That was never part of my.
It's interesting, Seth. You always worked as a manager, right?
Yes, I worked as a manager and I worked in creative, and then as a coach in boxing now. And I even work with pro wrestlers today on teaching them how to cut promos and do mic work and things like that.
So let's talk about that, Seth. This is a great segue. Let's talk about that. What happened to the characters, like the little people and cowboys and blonde-headed heels? And then we'll go around you and then Davey jump in. Go for it.
There's a few things. It's kind of a multi-tiered question. One, we can talk about what's the difference between a gimmick, a character, and a persona, and we can talk about how you live that, practice that, things like that. And I can even tell you kind of what I do in terms of working with my students. I'll start with the gimmick, persona, character thing. When I started out, I've always considered my thing to be my persona. It was never a character. I never had to play a part to be Fish and Chips Wilson, was my ring name when I was managing. And when I started out, I would wear the tweed cap, smoke a cigar, drink a beer, because that's what I did. And I'd go out there and I'd just be that way.
Sure.
As it progressed, I started to get suggestions of promoters and even just myself, and getting into what other angles people were doing. Started to wear the Greek fisherman's cap. I started to have a corn cob pipe, and one promoter wanted me to carry a bottle of malt vinegar to spray in people's eyes, and stuff.
Okay.
And I said, nah, that's too literal, When I started, the character or the persona went over really well. When I started to get a little too literal, a little too cartoonish, dropped off a little bit. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to go back. I'm going to wear my cap. I'm going to smoke my cigar, drink my beer, and do my thing. And it picked up again exponentially, because I realized at that point, I wasn't a character. I wasn't a gimmick. It was my persona that I was bringing to the ring.
And the persona, let's clarify that. The persona is an extension of yourself. A character is made up.
Right. And the gimmick, I mean, I think a persona and a character can have gimmicks. Gimmicks are kind of the cigar and the beer. That's a gimmick.
Well,
but
I
even
have
though
a question for you, Davey Hannon. They say the best characters are your real personality cranked up to 11.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Listen, when you said where are all the characters, Mike Cicluna used to walk into a dressing room, and Mike Cicluna was a character. It was a wonderful guy, a dear, dear friend. But Mike used to look around a dressing room and say, we got the geeks, the freaks, the midgets, the ladies, cavemen, bearmen, wolfmen, cowboys, Indians, doctors, lawyers. We got them all. We got them all. So, like you just said, you became that person, whatever it might have been. You became that person. And we never stepped out of character. We didn't step out of character in front of the people. I never did. Not once. I found it easier to be a heel. It was easier for me to be a little bit arrogant and give a face to a person.
And it's more fun.
I never signed an autograph in front of the people. Not once. Not once.
That's interesting.
To the point of stepping out of character or not. One way that we used to kind of, I don't want to say practice this, but when I was in it, and the difference now is people don't live their characters. They don't live their personas. We would go to a bar. All my stories end up in a pub or Las Vegas. That's all my good stories. But we would go to a bar, and me and the guys that I used to manage or whatever, and we would sit around and we would cut promos on each other in public. Just, back and forth, cutting promos on each other. The more, the more obscure or the worse, the better, And all of a sudden we noticed, we would just do it for ourselves. And also we'd notice a crowd gathering around us. And people would be cheering or laughing or whatever, just us talking shit to each other, cutting promo. And we went from that, we were just being ourselves. We'd take it on the weekend to Saturday nights, bring to the fight we were going to do or the wrestling match. And we just do that all over again or take elements of that. And pretty soon the crowd was gathering around, just like in the pub, and saying that. So we never, like Davey's saying, we were never out of it.
Well, you know what? With that thought in mind, I'll page back to the 70s when I was working, the early 70s. If you worked for Eddie Graham in Florida, now Eddie Graham was one of the best wrestling minds that I ever came across. But talking about your persona, if you were a tough guy heel and you went to a bar and somebody challenged you or you wound up in a scrape, if you got beat up, you were done in Eddie Graham's territory.
Oh,
He would tell you, he would tell you when he hired you, he said, let me tell you something. If you think you're a tough guy, you better be a tough guy all the time. You better be a tough guy all the time. You're on our television, you're on our arenas, you're going to be a tough guy. So if you think, and it happened, JJ is the greatest example. JJ, really good amateur wrestler. He's got a good background, but JJ is JJ isn't a Haku. Okay, nobody's a Haku, by the way. But and JJ said, "Hey, listen, I don't go out and get in fights. So here's the deal: I don't go to those places. Why? Because I'm making good money here in Florida, and if I go to a bar and a couple of guys clean my clock, and the word gets out, the next thing that's going to happen to me is I'm going to be looking for another territory.
Exactly.
Can't do that. Exactly. So if your persona was a tough guy, then you better be a tough guy all the time, the time. So
just to ride off of Davey's thoughts there and what he was saying, there was the time I had finished an event, and it was one of the few times that I stayed and had a couple drinks. We were at a VFW hall, and the ring crew hadn't started taking the ring down yet, and myself and a couple of the other guys were in the bar, and we were having a couple beers, and I was a heel, and like Davey said, you've got to carry that persona outside of the ring also, because the fans can still be there also. So I'd be like, get out of my way, that kind of thing. When I'm leaving the arena, I got to keep that persona. Well, I go into the bar, I'm having a beer, and unfortunately, I'm what you call a drunk magnet. Wherever I sit, the drunk is going to end up sitting next to me.
Lying. I know him.
Lightning rod.
The guy sitting next to me is telling me how he's going to go to a wrestling school, and one day I'm going to have to face him in the ring, and how afraid, I'm not that, I don't look that tough. And I turned around and I just grabbed the guy and I said, look, the ring is still up. Let's go out to the ring and you step into my world for 5 minutes. And the bartender the whole time is looking at this guy saying, shut up, sit down, shut up. He's going to kill you. Now I'm not that guy at home.
Right.
That's my persona, Armageddon. That's my persona in the ring. That's what I do in front of the crowd. When I'm at home, I'm Mike Murphy watching the Eagles on Sunday with my dog sitting next to me, drinking a beer and eating a cheesesteak,
That sounds good.
So the difference between
wonderful.
the difference between a persona and a gimmick, Seth said it perfectly. His hat, his beer, his cigar, that's his gimmick. The person, that's his persona. And I found that I didn't really develop my persona until right around when you and I met. And it was like a year and a half into my career. My persona was all over the place. And finally, believe it or not, and I have to give my mom credit, she said, look, you ride Harleys, you're a biker, you're a truck driver, you're that person. She says, why don't you make your persona that person?
Yeah.
So I went, I got, the leather chaps, the leather vest, the black tights, the black boot. And for the first time when I put that outfit on, I felt comfortable in my own skin out in front of that crowd.
Murphy, you have to tell the Undertaker story.
Oh, okay. I was.
This is for shoot, folks.
Yeah, when I first started, I used to come out. I had the black boots. I had camo pants, a t-shirt, black t-shirt, long black duster. And like I said, my character was all over the place. I had bleached blonde hair. And finally, like I said, what my mother told me, hey, why don't you try this? So I went out, spent a bunch of money, got the outfit together, and it's getting over. My character was getting over. And one night, I just happened to flip on Monday Night Raw or something, and here comes the Undertaker riding down to the ring, pretty much wearing the outfit I'm wearing, and I'm yelling at the TV set. I'm like, son of a bitch. Because now I'm thinking, now I got to go and change my character again. So that's my particular story.
That's what copyright is all about, man.
Right.
Exactly.
But, in terms of talking about ring psychology, what we're really talking about, in terms of the difference between yesteryear and today is...
Au contraire, my friend. Au contraire. There you're going to get an argument.
Okay, well, what do you mean?
It absolutely is ring psychology.
No, that's what I'm saying. No, this is what I'm saying. My point is that the difference, though, between the ring psychology from then and today is that
there is none today. That's the problem.
People lived their personas. People lived their gimmicks. So many times now, you see people that I become this character when the camera's on. And, but,
right.
even, Michael, you're saying, well, I'm different at home, but you're still the Harley riding, guy. You're still that guy. So many people they put on a cape and they become a superhero or something. And then they work a tech job during the week and stuff. And it's like, how do you live? You can't live that. It's
Jake
different.
the Snake Roberts said it best. And Davey, I'm curious to what you think about this. Jake the Snake said, my match begins when I pull in the parking lot.
Oh, yeah.
I become Jake the Snake the moment I get out of my car.
No doubt about it.
And that match begins the moment I get out of my car. I am that person.
Yeah, if there's a fan in the parking lot, I want him to hate me before I even get in there.
Hey, there you go. And that, my friend, is the art of psychology.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure that those of us that did it back then thought of it like that. I don't think we thought, okay, let's see, what's the psychology about this?
Right.
I'm not sure how to describe what we did.
I
knew I was a heel. I knew how to act like a heel. I had to act like a stuck-up, smug, nasty. And like I said to you last week, as far as I was concerned, a good heel had to be three things. You had to be sneaky, you had to be vicious, and you had to be a coward.
Absolutely.
Okay? That's how I did it. I was sneaky enough to get the drop on somebody. Then I was vicious when I got them. And then when it was time to change things around, I was an absolute coward. There's nothing anybody hates more than a 250-pound guy that was just kicking the crap out of Tony Garea, wearing pink tights and pink boots, and now is a coward.
Right.
So maybe that's described as the psychology. But what we did was, when you talk about telling a story, we actually told the story in a ring. And we told it by wrestling.
Thank you.
That's what I think is missing a little bit now. I told you again last week. I worked with a lot of different people. I worked with guys that were absolute legends in the business. Lucky for me that I got to be there with them. I worked in, I think Amarillo, might have been Albuquerque. I'm not positive. A 45-minute through with Dory Funk Jr. and it was a headlock. That was it.
Yeah.
For 45 minutes. And he said to me, I'll take care of this. Well, let me tell you, the guy is a magician. He's a master. He was one of the best ever doing what we did. And we did a couple of spots off the headlock, but everything was right in the middle of the ring. There was no hopping around on the ropes.
Yeah.
I wasn't there to argue with the people. It was so that was basically the psychology, and that was the story. The story was Dory was trying to pop my head off my shoulders, and I was trying to do everything to prevent that from happening, using every dirty move that I possibly could. But the story was for the people that didn't work for me.
Yeah.
That didn't work. Luckily.
The story was built around the sport, the athletics. It wasn't built around, it was the confrontation was the clash of two wrestlers, not.
Well, and you know what, Seth? I think it's more so that now, to be honest with you. I think because of the fact that the guys today are incredibly superb athletes.
Oh, they're the best. Yeah, they're fantastic.
Remarkable. Oh, they are remarkable athletes, and they can do anything except wrestle, tell the story, and have psychology. Other than that, they're amazing athletes.
Anything the 45-minute headlock, that's a wrestling hold, and so the story was built around that.
The story was built around.
Well,
let me tell you then. Maybe either one of you guys can shut me down if you think I'm wrong. But the story was built around. I'll give you a perfect example. I used this guy last week as a perfect example. Johnny Valentine. Johnny Valentine.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Would grab an arm bar on a guy and keep it there for 20, 30 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
But what he did was he built tension. That was the psychology of that move. There was a story in that move too.
And you know what?
How angry can you get? Go ahead, Davey.
Yeah, and our saying used to be, "It takes three to tango." That that includes the referee. But don't forget, when Johnny was doing that arm bar, or Dory had the headlock on me, you had to have the other person know how to sell.
Right.
You had to have you had to know how to sell. Yeah. And we were talking about the Chief. Man, he would sell till he looked like he was going to die.
Yeah.
And then when it was time, we had little things we could do to get the fans back involved. And boy, they'd start their tom-tom rhythm. And all Scarpa had to do was shake his head a little bit.
Yep.
And get up and
he was a master.
He was great. He was great.
But Davey, think about what he did though. He told the story with that head shake.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he didn't have to do a lot. That's all he did. Johnny Valentine took an arm.
You made my point beautifully.
You don't
have to do a lot.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was always a heel. I never worked as a babyface until twice in my career I got booked against my friend Mike Cicluna, who was really an established heel.
Oh yeah.
And like we're talking about doing just enough to get the people involved in telling them a story. So anyway, I made Mike a small bet in the dressing room that I was going to make a baby face out of him, and it worked. Because I just changed my shoes and my tights and put the pink stuff back on, and it worked. But anyway, they loved the Baron. But talk about not doing too much. During the match once, I grabbed him and I hooked his head and I threw his arm over my shoulder and I said suplex. And he stood up, he looked at me and he went, "For what?" Actually, if you ever met Mike Cicluna, his voice sounded like he had an ice skate stuck in his throat.
I met the Baron once.
Yeah, he looked at me and he went, "For what?" I said, "Oh, okay, I get it. We don't need that suplex."
I was a kid at the time and he scared the shit out of me.
Angelo, you and I.
Hold on, Murph, because I want you to tell the story. Davey just made a beautiful story about not doing much, right?
Yep.
You have an incident that happened to you where a guy decided to go into business for himself. You want to tell that story about how you had to not only carry the match but carry him?
Me?
You remember the guy you told me about? This guy, he decided to go into business for himself, and he did his ending and not the finish that was given to him.
Oh yes. Yeah. What happened was we had an ending set up, and he didn't like it. So we went with another one, and we're coming up to the end of the match, getting ready to take it home, and he blows the ending.
That's the one.
So the actual deal is that I was trained in, if you have a second ending, if you blow the original ending, go to your original ending and take it home. Because we didn't want to run over. Well, this guy fought me on that ending the whole way. Totally post kayfabe in the ring, because he starts yelling out in front of the crowd, schoolboy me. And oh yeah, well, not only that, but he stiffed me.
And he got a receipt.
I roll him up 1, 2, 3. He darts out of the ring because he knew what was coming. I get out of the ring. I look at my manager, and I told him, as I'm running back to the ring, I told my manager, don't ever book me with him again. We get back to the locker room, and I'm going headstrong right to this guy. My manager yells out, get between these two. And I was ready to rip this kid's head off. I told him, I said, I don't know who trained you. I don't know where you trained at. This kid couldn't sell to save his life. He couldn't work to save his life. And then he's going to turn around and blow kayfabe for the whole match during the ending of the match. He's lucky I didn't drop him right there in the ring. And I'm not like that.
I'm curious. You don't have to say the name, but do you know who trained? Did you ever find out who trained him or what his background was?
You know what? I know who trained him, and I know the guy's name. He's not working anymore. Imagine that.
Really, believe it or not, that's not really even relevant.
Yeah, I'm not going to put that out there.
Yeah, no, I don't want you to do that. I was just curious if you ever found out.
Go ahead, Davey.
I could say, well, in the old days,
Right.
that would have been his last visit to a ring. You could pretty much guarantee that. If it didn't happen right in the ring, it certainly would have happened in the dressing room. And
for sure,
I saw that happen more times than once. I had a little scrape in a dressing room with Spiros Arion because I was really green and actually didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know I hurt Spiro. He was a really moody guy, although we became really close friends. And I wish I knew what became of him. But anyway, Spiros and I had a little scrape in the ring, and I didn't even know what happened. And we got back. He actually kicked me in the nuts. I mean, really hard to kind of get my attention. And we were in a tag match. It was Spiros and Waldo Von Erich with Tony Altamari and I. And anyway, we got back in the dressing room, and I was sharing a room with George Steele, Mike Cicluna, Dominic, and Bugsy, and Bruno.
Oh, wow.
Those guys were playing cards. Yeah, and I came in there. I was pretty green and a little bit of an attitude. And I said, I don't know what's going on around here. I said, but if you assholes think you're going to take advantage of me, that's not going to happen. Because I knew how to wrestle. Sure. I wrestled in Big 8, so I knew how to be an amateur. I sure didn't know how to do any other stuff. So
sure.
while I was shooting my mouth off, Bugsy, who is my dear friend and has an incredible speech impediment, sometimes it takes him 30 seconds to get a word out, is trying to tell me, you better look behind you because Spiros is standing there, And I said to these guys, if that Greek MFer thinks he's going to do this, well, Dave, guess who's listening to all of this? And turned around and he said, you want to go all the way? Well, I knew what that meant.
Oh yeah.
And we had a little scrape, luckily, probably luckily for me, the other guys broke it up. But when nonsense happened like that in the ring, we took care of it right there. especially if you thought somebody was hurting the business. Because, don't forget, unlike some of the independents now, unfortunately, the guys can't make a living like we did in the territories. That opportunity isn't there for them. Many of the independent guys would be great in the territories. A lot of the independent guys would have been stars if the territories were still here.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. I mean, no doubt about it.
Well, David, you're a guy, it's an interesting situation that you found yourself in, because you're a guy from the Northeast, born and raised here, who found yourself, your first match in Middle America.
Oh, yeah.
In Kansas City, of all places.
Well, the Kansas City territory, the first match was in a place called Sedalia, Missouri.
Yeah.
In the Sedalia Fairgrounds, or whatever the hell it was called. And listen, I wasn't even smart, because back then you didn't get smartened up. There was nobody trained me. There were no wrestling schools at the time. If you got really lucky, you found a gym where some of the guys went, and somebody took a liking to you and then gave you a little training. Well, I BS'd my way into the business. I told them a lie here in Kansas City, and they bought it. And then I went back to New York and told them the opposite of the lie, and they bought it.
Yeah, exactly. So, another lie.
Yeah, well, that's.
But here's the thing, though. The long and short of it was, you paid your dues. You learned how to work.
Oh, they made you
up, and in so doing, therein lies the psychology.
Oh,
the storytelling takes place in a ring.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. But listen, my first my first match, and it's a name that you guys might not recognize, although he was an AAU NCAA champion for years. His name was Joe Scarpello. Just a little guy, he was about 5'8", 5'8", maybe 200 pounds, but an unbelievable shooter. And that was my very first match, because they thought I was smart. And when we got in the ring with the referee, I didn't know. I heard somebody using some of this terminology. So I said, "What are we doing? Are we shooting or are we working?" I didn't know what work meant. I knew what shooting was, because I was a shooter in college. And the referee was an old-timer named Ronnie Etchison. And Ronnie Etchison I used to watch as a kid. He came to the New York territory when I used to go see them. I actually saw him wrestle Angelo Savoldi.
Oh my God!
But
wow.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Wow.
And when I said, "Are we shooting or working?" I heard Ronnie Etchison say, "Oh, Jesus Christ!" And, yeah, he knew what was about to happen. I didn't.
Oh God, yeah.
And Joe Scarpello looked up at me and said, "Now, don't forget, I just got done with football season in Missouri. I was almost 6 feet tall. I was about 265 pounds in pretty decent shape." And Joe Scarpello said, "Just take your best hold, kid." And I said, okay. Well, in about 5 minutes, I realized that I did not have a best hold. I didn't. There was no best hold to be found for me.
Oh, shit.
This guy had me wrapped up like a Christmas present. He didn't hurt me, although he let me know that he could on a couple of occasions. My second match was with Lou Thez. Do I even have to tell you what happened there?
Your second match ever is with Lou Thez?
Lou Thez, yes.
Oh my God.
But Lou Thez was okay if he respected you. And in the dress, and again, Angelo, I tell you guys, if I'm boring you to death here, just say, "Okay, Davey, take a break." But Lou Thez said to me, walked over to me, and he said, "Hey, kid," he says, we need about 8 minutes. This was for Kansas City TV. We were in St. Joseph, Missouri. And he said, "We need about 8 minutes." He said, "But listen," he says, "I'm going to back you up to the ropes." He said, "No, I'm going to slap you." And I looked at him and I said, "Well, Mr. Thez," I said, "if you slap me, I'm going to slap you right back." And he just kind of smirked at me and walked away. And I think that's when he said, okay, well, we'll treat this kid all right. And we had a good match. As far as I was concerned, I didn't get killed. We had a good match. We wrestled, and it was all wrestling. It was no punch, no kick.
Luthez was the guy that he was a shooter. He was back in the day. They used the term. You know the term. It's called a hooker.
He was a hooker, man, and he could
was
hook
a hooker for sure.
Yeah, he was so smooth. He put his elbow on my ear, and I didn't realize it. And he hit his wrist or hit his fist, and you'd think he got hit with a hammer in the ear. Whoa, what the heck was that? And my third match ever was in Waterloo, Iowa, because this was all the Kansas City territory.
Yeah, sure.
My third match ever was with Danny Hodge.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God!
So what was happening?
Danny Hodge. Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, see, what I realized was happening here is I was getting a little test.
Sure.
And it wasn't a test to see if I could wrestle or not, because I could. It was a test to see what kind of attitude I had, and it was a test to see if I had some respect for their business, because it wasn't my business yet. It was their business. It was how they made a living.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Murphy, talk to Mr. O'Hannon about that incident you had where someone came in and didn't show the dressing room proper respect.
Okay. This goes back.
I'm referring to that newbie who thought he knew everything and then some.
Yeah, this goes back about 7, 8 years, 9 years. And I was doing a show for a company called Superstar Wrestling. I'd only been with them about maybe 6 months. The late Mike DiMuzio was the promoter, may he rest in peace.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Very good friend of mine. I miss him dearly. So anyway, I'm in the locker room. I'm walking into the locker room, and there's a referee in there, Zach Carlucci, little black guy, about 5'0", and sometimes he hates me because I coined the term on him, Beetlejuice, because sometimes I would get in the ring and I'd mouth off to him and I'd be like, "Oh, look at your head looking like a half-sucked milk dud, looking like something out of Beetlejuice." Well, the crowd heard it and then they started calling him Beetlejuice. But Zach is a very professional referee. Anyway, one of the best out there. Anyway, I'm backstage and I'm talking with Zach and another wrestler, and this kid comes in. Now, I call him a kid because I'm like probably 20 years older than him. Anyway, this kid comes in and he says, "Hey, you're Armageddon." I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "Oh, it's you and me tonight." I said, "Okay." He says, "Well, look, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this and this and this, and then we're going to turn it around, and you're going to do this and this. Then we'll turn it around one more time, and then we'll take it home." And I said, "Really?" I said, "How long have you been working, kid?" "Oh, about a year." I said, "A whole year?" And I said, no, son. I said, "Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to go out there. We're going to collar and elbow. I'm going to take you in a headlock. I'm going to crush you. Then I'm going to pin you. Then that's going to be the end of the match." And I picked up my boots and I got up and I was walking away, and I heard Zach say to this kid, "You know what? You just pissed off the nicest guy in the locker room. I wouldn't want to be in your boots tonight." And I did exactly that. I went out, collar and elbowed him, headlocked him, then proceeded to crush him, pinned him, took it home, pinned him 1, 2, 3, and I got up and I walked out of the ring and walked back to the locker room. But see, that's the thing that I see, and one of the reasons why I retired is a lot of these kids coming up, and this goes for the whole part of the show, they either can't work, they can't sell, or they're doing a bunch of high-flying stuff and nobody's selling anything,
Thank you.
or they have absolutely no respect for the business or the guys who came before them.
Well,
And I find that a lot, and that's the thing, Davey, that annoys me more than anything.
Well,
Seth, let's talk about this a little bit.
Do you guys mind if I tell you one similar to that story?
Oh, please do, Davey. Absolutely.
In the New York territory, sometimes you'd have to go and spend it in what used to be the Pittsburgh territory. Pittsburgh was a little territory in and of itself. It was
Bruno,
a great place.
you're selling it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Bruno and Ace Freeman, and it was a really great place to work. They had great TV. Bill Cardell was a TV guy.
Sure.
But anyway, you'd work the Pittsburgh towns, then you'd work West Virginia and Ohio, and we were in a town called Hubbard, Ohio, one night. It was a fantastic. It was always all the way. It was sold out. It was the only live entertainment for miles around. So we're in Hubbard, Ohio, packed house,
right.
And we're sitting in the dressing room, and playing cards is Monsoon and Mike Cicluna and Dominic and somebody else. I don't remember who else was. Maybe Johnny DeFazio. They're playing cards there. And I didn't play cards, so I used to sit on the side and watch or read a book or something. And Gino Monsoon used to put the lineup on the wall, so you'd just pay attention to what was going on. You'd have to see who was in the ring, so you'd be ready, because he was pretty strict about following the rules, not messing up the flow of the show. So some guy a local guy comes in who's pretty new, big, strong, jacked up. And he looks at the lineup and he goes, shit, I'm working with the old man. Well, he was booked with Mike Cicluna. He's booked with Mike Cicluna. So we all kind of looked up, and I saw Mike like almost bite the end off his pipe that he was smoking. And he went, what? He's starting to grumble. So that's like our signal. Get your pokes, fellas. Don't want to miss this one. All right. So everybody in the dressing room, the card game stops when it's time for their match. So Mike Cicluna gets in there. Now, keep in mind, Mike Cicluna would come to the dressing room, take out a jump rope, and skip rope for 30 minutes solid and fast before he got in the ring, and then do it 30 minutes after he got out of the ring.
Yeah.
This guy was in incredible shape.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. So now they go to the ring, and this guy is going to work with the old man. Well, I actually stopped counting how many turnbuckles Mike gave this guy. I think I stopped at 19. It was like dragging a sack across. This guy blew up after the first 3 turnbuckles, and Mike just kept going. And then Mike started pounding on him. He was hitting him with lung crushers that you would have said, I was saying ouch to myself. So the match ended, mercifully for this guy.
Yeah.
Mike came back, got his jump rope, started skipping rope. The next match got in the ring, and the guy was still there. He still didn't get his breath.
Wow.
Mike sat down and started the card game again. And finally, this kid walked over and said, Mr. Cicluna, he said, I'm really sorry I said that. And Mike went, said what? And he said, I'm sorry I called you an old man. He went, old man? He says, I would have killed you if I heard that, you mother thing. Holy crap. Okay.
I love it.
That was the last.
Great.
We didn't see him anymore. We didn't see it. And another really short one, like you said, dressing room protocol, the old Philadelphia arena that I think it was Market Street that it was on. We would do TV there, and Bruno was such a regular guy. Bruno didn't have a private spot for himself. He would sit with us, and everybody be in a dressing room. And a guy comes in from Detroit named Gino Hernandez.
Yeah.
We're in there, and Gino Hernandez is wearing his whatever the hell it was, his Detroit United States Championship belt.
Yeah.
And he comes over, and he's got his belt, and he introduces himself, and he says to Bruno, "Oh yeah," he says, "I got the belt in Detroit." He says, "What was your name again?"
Oh.
Bruno said, "Oh," he says, "San Martino. They tell me I got the belt here. I got some kind of belt here." I mean, Jesus. And Gino Hernandez, rest his soul, is or not rest his soul, whatever the case may be, was not
dead.
a popular guy for reasons like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you what, Gino Hernandez, for better or worse, made himself known wherever he went. Seth,
Yep.
There's got to be stories in your neck of the woods. So let's go to you. What do we got?
Well, as far as like we're talking ring psychology and the effectiveness of ring psychology and storytelling, I experienced it on several occasions. One, it got to a point where, and again, back when I was doing it, you could still really interact with the audience, and we'd get out there and I would yell stuff out to them or they'd yell at me, and I'd incite all kinds of riots and stuff with them. And got to a point, I was definitely a heel. But I would come out to the ring, and as soon as I'd come out to the ring, people would yell from the audience, "Do me, insult me," like they wanted me to interact with them or to make fun of them or do something, So that
Seth, I've got a question for you. I have a question for you, and it may seem, by the question, it may seem obvious what the answer might be, but because you're a little person, did children gravitate toward you, or did they not get or understand that you're actually this bad guy?
That's a loaded question. First of all, it's totally fine, but I don't usually use the term little person for myself. It just never sounded right.
What term do you prefer?
I actually don't. I'm either short in stature or a midget. I don't because of the physical structure of my body. There's certain things, but those I don't mind. Not that I mind little person, but it was just something that I never connected with in terms of my identity or who I was. That maybe because I've got that like little dog mentality where I think I'm bigger than I am, or something like that.
Right.
I got a loud bark.
I have that problem too. Ask Murphy.
Yeah. Well. As far as the thing with children, that's a loaded question because one, when I was in wrestling, we didn't do a lot of all ages shows. The groups I was involved with, a lot of them were 21 and over shows. But I did work on a kids television program that was in Seattle area for over a decade. So I had relationship, with in terms of being able to perform with a young audience and things like that.
Did they make the connection?
Well, so again, as far as being in wrestling, there was never any instances where that would have occurred. I do have one story that was interesting, and it really speaks to ring psychology and the believability of who I was because it was real. I was doing a show, and again, I don't know why we got booked on this show, but it was like for some after hours, like rave party. It was like a big multi-floored party. There was techno music and all this stuff. Not my scene. It's fine, but just not my scene. And we were doing a wrestling show on one of the floors, and it got really wild. There was a dog collar match, and I was managing, and I was right in there and stuff, and guys got juice and everything, and after the show, this woman, I was at the bar, and very attractive woman. She's kind of looking at me, crossing her arms, thinking, all right, my lucky night, whatever. This is great. And she starts approaching me. I'm like, fantastic. And she came up to me and she said, I'm a mother. She said, my son is very young, but he uses a wheelchair as well. Right. And as a mother, I always tell him, you can do whatever you want. You can be whatever you want. You can do whatever you want, And she said, but also as a parent, I know that in the world that there's going to be a lot of things, barriers in his way, or people trying to say, no, you can't do that, But she said, watching me that night in the ring with these big guys, guys, I'm a third of their size, or whatever. And, but I'm, ordering them around and doing everything. She said, seeing me that night in the middle of the fracas, in the middle of all of it and controlling the violence, she said, I can go home and tell him, you can be whatever you want. You can do whatever the hell you want to do. So even me being a heel resonated with somebody in terms of just the tenacity and saying that it doesn't matter. Your size.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was getting at, and I'm glad.
Yeah, so that's from a parent that was able to go home and change her whole. And very honestly, that made my night. Even more than what I was thinking when she approached me. That made my night. I went home with such a smile on my face, because that's the effectiveness of professional wrestling done correctly. It sticks with people. It sticks to your ribs, and you take it home with you. And if you know how to tell the story, if you've got the right persona, that's what it does. It changes people. It makes them think differently.
Absolutely.
Well, you know what? I got to tell you something, and I'm so pleased to hear what Seth just said, because I'm going to tell you, when I was in the business and in the territories, when we were on the road, there was no title or description put on guys like Sky Lolo and Fuzzy Cupid, whether it was them or Andre or me or anybody else. They were just wrestlers, just like us.
Yeah,
just like us. That's and it was never mentioned. It was never mentioned, and it wasn't mentioned because it was a sore subject. It didn't have to be mentioned. We were all doing the same thing.
It just never came up. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't as big as Andre, and the Farmer Pete wasn't as big as me. Didn't matter. It just we were just the boys. That's all it was. That's all it was. There was no title hung on anybody, and like Seth just said about a kid that was less fortunate. It happened to me in the Asbury Park Convention Hall. I was working, and I happened to glance out, and at the end of the first row was a young guy in a wheelchair. I could see his parents and sister were with him, and he had cerebral palsy. And he was razzing me through the match, and I finally jumped out of the ring and got in his face and told him to shut up and you stop it. And he kind of looked at his father, and his father said, "Tell him." And this kid went off on me. And when I got out of the ring, what I did was, there was a folding chair sitting there that the timekeeper was using. I put it behind me. And, nobody noticed. It looked like I just moved it out of my way. Yeah. And the kid was really giving it to me, and we were having a good time. And I stepped back, and I stepped into the chair. I took a big bump over the chair, and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I went back, and somebody came to the dressing room door and said, listen, that kid's father wants to talk to you. I said, oh, crap. Now what? Now what? And the father said to me, I'm going to tell you something. This was the best day of his life. The best. He had more fun today. He says, we haven't seen him have so much fun ever. He said, thanks for treating him just like one of the... I said, well, he is just one of the fans. I feel terrible that he's in that situation. And I said, listen, I can't talk to you outside. We actually brought him back, and I think that Putski was there that night. I think Putski took a picture. I can't be sure with him.
Okay.
But I said, you know what? We come back here. I said, you understand that I can't come out there and talk to you, but come on back here. And all the guys came. They made a fuss over him, and the father said, yeah, it was so. While we're talking about different people and that's why there's vanilla and chocolate ice cream, man. It's something different for everybody.
Sure.
But I like your point. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I would love to. I'd love to bring that up next week when Ivan's on the show.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know if he'll remember. I know he didn't see what I was doing out there, but and you got to think that he, especially as a popular babyface that he was, that he's done that with a million different people.
Just to close the point,
I do have a question for you. because I read somewhere that this almost happened, and you would be the guy who might know. Was there ever at any point some talk about turning Bruno heel?
Bruno, not that I know of. Turning Husky heel, there was some talk about that.
Oh,
but again,
really? Okay.
But I wasn't in the office. You know, I wasn't in there. But I know for sure, only because we were so close. First of all,
yeah,
Bruno would have never done it.
Well, yeah. Well, I
would have never. Listen, Bruno, if he was at a restaurant,
yeah,
and there were kids in the restaurant, Bruno wouldn't have a glass of wine on the table in front of him.
I know that for a fact. Yeah,
he wouldn't do it. He was too sensitive to the people because they believed in him.
He lived
in him so much, and that was legitimate because he was the kind of guy to believe in.
Absolutely. Well,
Davey, I gotta say this. And I don't mean to interrupt, but Davey, I gotta say this. There's a wrestler that you remind me of. I saw the one picture of you, and you remind me so much of Dirty Dick Slater.
We were tag team partners.
They were.
we were the Slater brothers.
There you go.
For about 2 months in Georgia.
That makes sense.
Yeah, Murph is a bit. Go ahead, Seth. You wanted to say something?
Oh, I was just to put a cap on Davey's point is that among the boys, among the locker room, that kind of stuff was never brought up. We were a group.
Oh.
We were, one time it was brought up with me, and that's a whole nother story by a promoter. And I'll just say that my bare knuckle skills were in handy, came in handy that time. But other than that, it was never brought up. It was never a thing. That's why
Beautiful.
I never really even addressed.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think we put an exclamation on the show. We wrapped it up with a nice bow, put an exclamation point on it. So, ring psychology and storytelling part 2. The final chapter is one for the books. But next week, we're going to open up another chapter in the book, Mr. Murphy. Ivan puts Polish Power. Will be here. And I'm going to pull Davey O'Hannon out of retirement if it kills him. And it just might.
It might.
Well, see, Angelo, I got to say this. See, you think I don't see what you're doing. What's think that? I don't understand. I know that you're bringing Davey O'Hannon on here.
Yeah.
You want to sign me and him up against each other. Now, he can't duck me forever. He's been ducking me too long.
Well, I
want to put you and Davey in the ring and go brawl for the Geritol.
Well, you know what? We can have the match at Rothman Institute because that's where I'll be. That's where I'll be in several weeks, getting a new wheel put on here.
Well, on behalf of myself and my audience, Mr. Murphy, I'll see you next week. Seth Witz, tell everybody where they can reach you, your social media, what you're up to, and what you're doing.
Yeah, man. So people can find me at the Fish and Chips Boxing Club. Find me online. My email is Seth Witz. That's SETHWITZ at yahoo.com. And I'm on Instagram at Fish and Chips Wilson. That's Fish, the letter N, Chips Wilson. And Facebook, Seth Witz. And you can message me there. And like I said, I train boxers. I train bare knuckle boxers. I train professional wrestlers and mic work and character development, gimmick development, things like that, how to cut promos.
All right.
And I even teach that to non-wrestlers, to boxers, and just to the general public. It's a good exercise in confidence building and how to be you and how to live yourself all the time. And that's what we're really talking about here is living it, man.
Absolutely.
So they can find me and I can set them up. We can talk about sessions either in person or online. And yeah, man, love to hear.
Beautiful. Kudos to you. And Mr. O'Hannon.
Well, thanks, guys. Fun doing it with you. Pleasure to meet Mike and Seth. It was fun having some time with you again.
It was awesome talking to you, man.
You guys made the night. I like being on a show with a couple of old timers like that.
I'll take that as a compliment.
I love it.
I love it.
I love when somebody can look at Murphy and call him an old timer. God bless
There you
brother.
go. Well, I can do that because he's far away from me. That's right.
Hey, thanks for joining us, brother.
Take care, guys.
On behalf of Murphy, Seth Witz, and Davey Hannon, I'm Mad Dog DeCipio. Take care, everybody. See you next time. Happy wrestling. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.